So when we're gluing, we need a couple of things. Number one is your Titebond original glue. The reason we're using the original one is because it has a longer working time, which means you get more time to glue things up before that glue sets. Number two is that it's less expensive than Titebond 3, which is the other glue we typically use within the workshop. Now 3 is a stronger glue and is waterproof, but has a much shorter working time, and so therefore is not ideal for these glue ups, which may take a little bit longer than expected. When we're gluing up, it's very important to make sure that you are wearing an apron and that you're keeping any glue away from whatever you're wearing. And we're not going to be wearing our good aprons, we're going to be putting on some of these older aprons, like the one we've got under here, because that way if you get glue on yourself, you can wipe it on the apron and keep working. When we do this, you want to have all your clamps already set up so that when you're gluing, you're ready to go. So I've got mine, I've tested them, they can all lock in really quickly. Normally we'd use something in between the pieces and the clamps to ensure that the timber doesn't get damaged, but because of what we're doing, it doesn't matter because we're cutting a circle out of this, so you're not going to see it anyway. So first step here is we're just going to come through, rotate one on the side, and we're going to add a bit of glue. Now, there's arguments over whether you should glue both sides or not. I've just always found I get a better glue up if I double glue. So for this one, we're going to double glue. And now you don't need to glue the whole way to the end because, well, we're not using the whole way to the end. So for here, I'm going to follow through to that mark and just guesstimate it on the other end. Come through, wiping away. And as you can see, I'm just using a single bead of glue to get this on. We don't need heaps because we're gluing both sides. Someone can then flip over and we're going to come through and do the other side. Now for this side, we have to use the whole thing because it's connecting to a larger piece. Single bead of glue and push through. Now when you're gluing, it's very important to make sure that there's nothing getting stuck anywhere, and that if there's any glue that's running down or running, you clean that up as you go. Then moving to the next piece. It can be beneficial also to get a friend to help you glue up, because that way you're having multiple people glue at one time, so you get even more time to work with. Now, if you're watching currently, you can see how little mess I'm making. That's the goal. You don't need a heap of mess. And the less glue you use generally, the better, as long as you've got it covering all surfaces. So you want to make sure it's covering the whole thing. And it takes some time. We're aware of this. You just keep pushing through. And the reason you want a really good glue joint for the top is because it's going to be so visible. Now, if you haven't got a good glue joint, you're going to have issues. Now, this is the one time where I didn't seem to get enough glue on here, and so I can add a little bit more. But a little bit. See that? It's a small amount. Coming through, cleaning that up. Like so. And then we're going to do this last edge. And now we have to line our pieces up after this is done. Line them up to make sure that everything's going to sit completely okay. And sit in the correct position. So I've done that. You can place your scraper down there. And I'm finding those dots that we drew, lining our pieces up to those, because that's going to give us the right spot for where they need to be. I'm going to put these in the center of the clamps, making sure that I'm happy with the way everything is. And when you tighten clamps, it's always beneficial to tighten them at a relatively same pace. Get them close. Don't do them too tight. You just want them to be a little bit tensioned, and that way you can come through and just line everything back up. Now one piece we're wanting to watch here is this piece here, because it seems to wanting to be lifting up, and it may just do it. No, we're going all right. And so as you tighten things, things tend to move. So you want to be watching any movement. So we're pushing down to make sure. Now, you definitely could put rods through here and clamp them down to make sure that there's no movement. I'm not going to, because I'm pretty happy. There's like a mil between some of the pieces, and that's fine. For me, I'm completely happy with that. Tighten it up, get it to where you want it. Make sure everything's still mostly in line, which it is. Then get your scraper one more time and remove this excess. You don't want it there. The more glue you can remove now, the better your life will be later. And so this is probably slightly too much squeeze out. I always like to see just a little. If I don't see any, I tend to get a little bit concerned in case I haven't used enough glue. But I know other woodworkers who don't mind either way. So we've got that sitting there. We're pretty happy with that. If you're really struggling getting your pieces lined up, come and see me and I'll help you. Remember, always tell me, sir, I'm gluing, I need help now. And I'll see what I can do. Now, we've got this all set. The last thing we need to do is come up and over. I'm gonna put this one on top. Now, the reason we place a clamp on top is because currently there's a lot of clamping pressure coming from the bottom here and forcing it, and so it's gonna kind of create a bit of an arch like this. Obviously, that's exaggerated. So by putting a clamp on top, we're just distributing where the load and the tension's coming from evenly to ensure that we're getting a nice, clean, neat, tidy joint. Add a bit of pressure, you'll notice a bit more glue comes out because it's changing some of that directional pull. Now you don't need to absolutely smash it to get it super tight, but it is handy to come through and get it fairly tight. What we're going to do now is, sometimes you're able to do this with a job, sometimes you're not, is I like to pick this up, spin it around because no more should be falling from that side, and I like to come through and clean up any mess on this side. So I'm going to come back, grab this and just remove that excess. Because the more glue you remove now, the easier your life will be later. You can also get wet paper towel and go over it. I find for me the scraper's fine. I'm able to get rid of the majority of it and it's sorted. Once you've done that, please go ahead, put it somewhere where it's out of the way so no one's going to trip on it. And before you do that, you need to do one other thing, and that other thing is we go through and we actually label when our job was glued. So you want to go through and label that. Because you use masking tape, I just don't have any on me right now. So I'm just going to go through, it's 12:01 p.m. and it's the 9th of October. Now the reason I've done that is because glue takes approximately 1 hour to be strong enough to declamp. After 24 hours it reaches its full strength, but after 1 hour you can declamp it. And because we have other classes coming through, best practice is to write it on so that they know when they can declamp it. That way there's no guessing. Guys, congratulations on finishing your glue up. It's exciting. Next one we'll be moving along and finishing off the legs, getting the legs connected to the half lap joins. I look forward to seeing you then.